Welcome to this edition of the Reality Report. I'm Gary Franchi. Before we get to our feature story on FEMA's latest blunder, let's take a look at our top stories. The Department of Homeland Security made the residents of Phoenix insecure over the weekend when two bombs went missing for several days after they were taken from a police training exercise at the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. The police team was training their dogs to sniff for bombs using two explosives used for mining that were placed in a cooler in the airport. Although the explosives were found yesterday, miles from the airport, police are declining to comment on why they were using live bombs or how they were stolen. Across the pond and 1 week before the 10th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, the 9/11 London Project was introduced and is seeking to teach UK students about the events of 9/11. The project is being supported by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and many established figures in Britain. Since they will only be allowed to teach what is state-approved, information from groups like Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth will not be included in lesson plans.
Building number 7 descended in free fall for the first 100 feet, which means that there was absolutely no resistance to the descent whatsoever.
NIST has admitted it went into free fall for 8 stories. And going from motionless to free fall instantly, that's a bothersome part of the puzzle because NIST never explained it.
The 10th anniversary of 9/11 takes place this Sunday. The Ron Paul presidential campaign has released their next campaign ad. In it, they take a swipe at former Al Gore supporter Rick Perry. Take a look.
The establishment called him extreme and unelectable. They said he was the wrong man for the job. It's why a young Texan named Ron Paul was one of only 4 congressmen to endorse Ronald Reagan's campaign for president, believing in Reagan's message of smaller government and lower taxes. After Reagan, Senator Al Gore ran for president, pledging to raise taxes and increase spending, pushing his liberal values. And Al Gore found a cheerleader in Texas named Rick Perry. Rick Perry helped lead Al Gore's campaign to undo the Reagan Revolution, fighting to elect Al Gore president of the United States. Now, America must decide who to trust, Al Gore's Texas cheerleader or the one who stood with Reagan. Ron Paul, restore America now.
Presidential candidate Ron Paul appeared on ABC this past weekend, calling Texas Governor Rick Perry the candidate of the week. He added, "The only thing I would advise is looking at his record and not just taking him at face value. Texas has had a lot of changes in these last 8 years, not exactly positive either." Paul is one of the top contenders in the GOP race for the White House. Texas wildfires have grown significantly during the holiday weekend and showed no signs of stopping. Already 7,500 acres have been consumed by the blaze and over 1,000 homes have been destroyed. Volunteers from all over the nation have been flocking to help victims of the blaze, but have been turned away. Eyewitness sources in Bastrop County, Texas have confirmed that thousands have showed up to help, but FEMA is not allowing it. According to the source, authorities don't want to see the volunteers injured. Police are blocking them from getting near the fires, and one local says of the police, they're getting in the way and letting the small towns burn. After the break, we'll take a deeper look into FEMA and how they are actually hurting those they intend to help.
Calling all Americans. Now is the time to come to the aid of your country. As our forefathers before us pledged their lives and fortunes, so shall we.
Bring the troops home. We're into the 4th year now of this recession. We can get out of this trouble by sending only people to Washington who will obey the Constitution.
Welcome back. Given FEMA's recent actions in the Bastrop County wildfires, they're under our microscope in the Deeper Look segment. As in times before, FEMA is turning away help from the American people who want to put their skills to use in assisting their fellow countrymen. This is eerily similar to what happened during Hurricane Katrina in 2005. You see, before Katrina hit, Chicago told FEMA that in the event of a disaster, it could spare more than 100 Chicago police officers, 36 fire department personnel, 8 emergency medical experts, and more than 130 staffers from Chicago's Department of Public Health, 140 people from the Department of Streets and Sanitation, dozens of trucks, and 2 boats. When disaster struck Louisiana, FEMA had requested only 1 tanker truck from the city of Chicago. Similarly, FEMA turned away 500 airboaters from Florida and 20 sheriff's deputies from Virginia. During the hurricane in 2005, Red Cross spokesman Renita Hulser said, "The Homeland Security Department has requested and continues to request that the Red Cross not come back to New Orleans." FEMA said they did this because of security concerns. On September 4th, 2005, the president of Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, Aaron Broussard, went on Meet the Press to tell the world what had happened.
We have been abandoned by our own country. Hurricane Katrina will go down in history as one of the worst storms ever to hit an American coast. But the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina will go down as one of the worst abandonments of Americans on American soil ever in U.S. history. We had Walmart deliver 3 trucks of water, trailer trucks of water. FEMA turned them back. They said we didn't need them. This was a week ago. FEMA, we had 1,000 gallons of diesel fuel on a Coast Guard vessel docked in my parish. The Coast Guard said, "Come get the fuel right away." When we got there with our trucks, they got a word. FEMA says, "Don't give you the fuel."
In the book People of the Dome, Mitchell Cohen recalls the disaster. On Wednesday, a number of Greens tried to bring a large amount of water to the Superdome. They were prevented from doing so, as have many others. Why have food and water been blocked from reaching tens of thousands of poor people? There is something sinister going down. It's not just incompetence or negligence. Now, under executive orders in the event of a national emergency, FEMA has the ability to suspend the Constitution, detain American citizens, and declare martial law. These kinds of powers show that FEMA not only functions as a disaster relief agency, but as an arm of government used to suppress civil unrest. Ron Paul is one man who sees the flaws in FEMA. He says FEMA creates many of our problems because they sell the insurance because you can't buy it from a private company, which means there's a lot of danger. So we pay people to build on beaches, and then we have to go and rescue them. Paul isn't the only one who sees FEMA for who they really are. Even the former director of FEMA agrees with Congressman Paul. Here's what Michael Brown had to say on Fox News.
What about Ron Paul's comment? FEMA creates many of our problems.
He's partially right in the sense that the country's broke. There's only a limited amount of cash available right now to spend on these projects. And what FEMA's done is something that FEMA's done traditionally throughout its budget crisis, and that is to say, with an accounting mechanism, we're not going to spend money on long-term projects that we might not actually have to write a check for a year or two, and instead we'll write checks for things that we have to pay today. But the problem is, and Dr. Paul, I think, really hits this correctly, FEMA has these problems every single year. And as long as we have the flood insurance program and we continue to more and more give out money through FEMA for some of these disaster programs, it will continue to face these problems.
Congressman Paul, whose constituents have had first-hand experiences with FEMA, relayed their first-hand accounts on CNN.
FEMA is not a good friend of most people in Texas because all they do is come in and tell you what to do and can't do. You can't get in your houses, and they hinder the local people, and they hinder volunteers from going in. So there's no magic about FEMA, and more people are starting to recognize that because they are a great contributor to deficit financing, and quite frankly, they don't have a penny in the bank.
FEMA is not just having money problems, but their flood program alone is about $20 million in debt. But Paul has a solution on how to phase it out and how the federal government can help fund emergency services.
But I propose that we save $1 billion from the overseas warmongering, bring half that home, put it against the deficit, and yes, tide people over until we come to our senses and realize that FEMA has been around since 1978. It has one of the worst reputations for a bureaucracy ever.
Looking back on what FEMA did during the Katrina disaster and what they're doing in Bastrop County, Texas now, it is clear they are causing more pain and stress on the American citizens than they are help. The FEMA plague continues. FEMA is an unacceptable layer of bureaucracy that needs to be dissolved so that the people at the local level can take care of themselves. The only way to do that is to support the only candidate that opposes them being in existence. And that candidate is Congressman Ron Paul. Don't forget to come out to see me this weekend at Liberty Fest in New York City. Stay tuned for the video promo after this. For the Reality Report, I'm Gary Franchi.
Freedom and capitalism and smaller government, limited government, lower taxes.
I love New York. You don't need to give me a reason to go to New York, but I've got a great one.
Liberty Fest. Very excited about it.
Liberty Fest, New York City, early September. Everybody come out. Going to be some great speakers and great cause. Well, I'm Gary Johnson, and I'm here in support of Taxpayers United of America. They're hosting an event in New York, Liberty Fest, and I'd like to see everybody out there.
Hey, anyways, Peter Schiff here. Looking forward to seeing all of you at Liberty Fest in New York City. I'll be speaking there. The movement is growing. We need everybody to come out.
Make sure you mark your calendar, September 10th, 2011, for the Liberty Fest in New York City.
Need to come out to Liberty Fest.
It's good for mankind and good for America.